Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm Kevin Schroeder, your host. I'm here with my co-host, Captain Ed Mammoth. Say hello, Ed.
Hello, WABC listeners. Here we are again with a very interesting group of people.
So
hope you enjoy it.
Today's guest, we have two sergeants, two bosses from NYPD, both retired. Pat Russo, who's also the boxing coach for the NYPD, and also retired Sergeant Pete Panuccio, who was retired, I believe, out of Night Watch in Manhattan South.
Manhattan South Night Watch.
In Manhattan South homicide as well. So, gentlemen, welcome. Today we're going to have a roundtable on Cop Talk, and obviously we know what the main issue will be in conversation. But before we do that, Pete, why don't you give everyone a little bit of your background?
Real quick, came on the job in 1981, moved up in 85. I was in narcotics for a few years. At the opening salvo of the crack wars, by the time I left, things were full-blown. I spent a few years in the 7-7 squad in Brooklyn, which was really an education in homicide, a tiny command that was banging out 85 homicides a year. Back to Manhattan, to Midtown North for a few years in Manhattan South homicide, then 15 years in the 19th precinct as patrol sergeant and detective squad. I was the second whip, the number 2 guy in the squad. 2010, went to Manhattan South Night Watch, where I remained for the next 10 years. And I gave it up in 2020, finished me off. By the end of that summer, I was done.
That's it.
Why don't you explain to our listening audience what Night Watch is?
Night Watch covers all the stuff that goes on between 1 a.m. and 8 a.m. in the morning. My particular area was Manhattan South, which is 59th Street down to the Battery. So pretty much any incident requiring detectives, we would respond to. It could be run-of-the-mill. It could be homicide shootings. Right. It could be one-off incidents. A lot of strange things happen after midnight. Oh, yeah. And a lot of times, we also worked very closely with Manhattan North Night Watch. Considerably more street violence, so we'd often go up there to assist them, too.
Right. So from 1 a.m., which is when the squads close down, until about 8 a.m., you're covering the city. So you initiate the case, and then...
We start the ball rolling, and I think people would probably be shocked if they knew the detective manpower levels on the late tour. Because some nights it would be myself, 3 detectives, maybe 4. Some nights 2. You know, we'd show up at a homicide, and white shirts, young captains running around like, where's everybody else? There is nobody else. It's us. But detectives assigned to Night Watch, were all very experienced people. They knew their work, and we knew what we had to do. So when the squads got in the morning, they have a leg up on the case. We've already started interviews. It depends. Sometimes you have an arrest already. But they have a good leg up on what they have to do. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, we pass it off.
Yeah, Night Watch does a good job, for sure.
Thank you.
Pat?
Hi, I'm also a retired NYPD sergeant. I came on the job in 1984, and when I was in the academy, I saw a sign on the wall to join the NYPD boxing team. And I never boxed before. I was just a 21-year-old kid. And I went down to Starlight City. I sparred a few times, and the coach asked me if I wanted to fight in Madison Square Garden versus the fire department. I looked at him, I said, I just put gloves on maybe 2 months ago. And he goes, don't worry, we'll get you a firefighter that never fought before. I fell in love with the sport, and my first fight in Madison Square Garden. And later, I got assigned to the 7-2 precinct, where it's the model precinct for community policing. And you know what? They grabbed me. They took me right into the program because they wanted a young cop that wasn't tainted by the job sucks crowd. And it worked. It worked. I loved everything I was doing, and I ended up taking over the NYPD boxing team, and I developed a program at the time was called the NEI program, Narcotics Enforcement Initiative, and it would go on to become today the FIO program, which is very effective problem-solving policing, which was what community policing was meant to be. was meant to go out there, work with your community, figure out the biggest problems that are affecting that community, and come up with ways to solve their problem, working together, using different, bringing in housing, bringing in other agencies, like to be the conduit to shut down, like drug spots, to shut down houses of prostitution, just to help the community solve each problem.
How many fights did you have?
I ended up having 10.
10. What'd you go, 10-0?
I was 6-4.
6-4. Not bad.
6-4.
Not
But
bad. Better than Jerry Cooney. Not bad.
Yeah.
Captain.
I don't know if you're aware of it, but the term night watch originally was a Los Angeles Police Department term. And I was around when the New York City Police Department adopted that program. They went into detective specialization. There never was a night watch. Detectives had a different working chart, and they would just stay over. So that's a piece of history that you might...
Yeah, I know. You know what? Even most people, even in the department today, even when I first come on, they don't realize how brutal the old detective chart was. And, it's... For years, what would happen, you might have a night watch, but it was small, and guys from the squads would have to backfill. So in the middle of your week, all of a sudden now, you're like, all right, you're not doing 2 day tours tomorrow, you're doing 2 midnights. And if I'm a night owl. I was born in the middle of the night, and I've been up in the middle of the night ever since. So it worked for me. A lot of people don't really do well with that kind of shift in the middle of their work week. I didn't know it came from I know we had what they used to call in the 1600s when the Dutch were here. They called it the night watch. Now, you might have been around for that. I don't know.
They called it the rattle watch.
The rattle watch. Thank you. Were you a rattle watch guy?
Well, maybe, I don't know. In another life I could have been.
Maybe.
What I'd like to bring up is the current fiasco that's going on with the city administration. Now, as we all know, that Mayor Adams is supposedly the first sitting mayor to ever been indicted. I don't know how true that is. There may have been some others way in the past. But what's important to realize is this happened twice before. Mayors didn't get indicted, but there was a problem. The first one I can talk about happened in 1932 under the administration of James Walker. It got so bad that the governor of the state of New York, who was Franklin Roosevelt, kind of told him, either resign or you're going to be fired, maybe even go to jail. So he took off with his girlfriend, and then he later came back. He became a radio announcer, believe it or not. The second one was in 1950. The mayor then was William O'Dwyer. And the interesting part about O'Dwyer, that he was originally a police officer, just like Adams. And then he became a lawyer. He got involved in politics, and he was elected mayor. And he had a corrupt, his things under him were very corrupt. And he had to resign, and he became the ambassador. So there is background to this that's kind of like similar, a lot of similarities. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know what country Adams is going to become ambassador to, where he's going to go, but just my own personal thoughts on it. My gut feeling was a couple of years ago, by year 3, Adams and his crew would be getting indicted because the circle of people that he brought in around him have bad track records going back over the decades. And Adams was no day at the beach himself back in the day when he was on the job. Not to say he was corrupt, but he was an instigator. He was a racial arsonist. Really threw a lot of allegations out there that were unfounded and caused a lot of animosity, not only within the police department, but within the community in general. And I think he and his crew, because I think this is going to get a lot uglier. This is going to get a lot bigger and a lot uglier before it's over. I think it was the inevitable conclusion. Tigers don't change their stripes. These guys have been scammers and doing nefarious things for a long time now. So what did you think was going to happen when they finally get into office.
Pat, what do you have to say about it?
Well,
About what's going
and
on?
I'm going to speak as a person that lives here in New York City, a person that has a business that I employ 50 people here in New York City, and as you know, I run a Cops and Kids program, and we hope to have a program in every borough of the city. Right now, we have 3, and we're looking at the Bronx. So I'm going to speak as someone that is invested in this city, and I think it's horrendous situation that we're in right now, because the police department is the key to the progress of New York City. And I think that's why Giuliani was so successful, because he put so much into crime fighting. And right now, I think what's most important is for them to take over, is to make sure that the NYPD is operating properly, because we need to keep this city safe. And like I said, I have a business with 50 employees in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and I got kids. I got a couple of thousand kids in our program. So that's what I care about the most. Like, now, I'm going to be, for full transparency, when Adams ran in the primary, I switched over to the Democratic Party to vote for Mayor Adams, because I think he was the best out of that crew that was running, because there was leftist progressives that I think would have took that would have been worse than de Blasio, and I think de Blasio was the worst mayor in New York City. So right now, I just hope that Damian Williams, the U.S. Attorney, does what's best for this city, and I think he's got to do it already and stop with this, like, killing the city by 1,000 cuts.
Well, what's quite important here is if Adams steps down, there will be a special election within, I believe it's 80 days. And the lunatic Imani Williams, who is now the public advocate, takes over. Now, can you imagine what it's going to be like for the 3 months that he's in?
Could be a lot of damage in 80 days.
He hates cops.
A lot of damage.
Just a funny story. I'm going to get a haircut on Friday in Bay Ridge, and there's an SUV, one of those big black SUVs that it's somebody important with official plates, and out jumps Jomani Williams, and I know him. Believe it or not, when he was a council member in Flatbush, Brooklyn, he gave us $30,000 in discretionary funds for the program. So I have a very good relationship with him. We disagree on everything, and I let him know that we disagree on everything. And so he's getting out of the car. I honk. I go, Jamali. And this is before the indictments came out, the day before. And I said, you ready to be mayor? He goes, you scared, right? And I looked at him. I said, terrified. He got a big laugh at it.
That's good.
Yeah.
And when everything came down, I texted him and I told him, I'm available for PC if you need me. I mean, that's the relationship we had. But like you said, I don't think he's the guy that's going to help this city right now.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, Pete, in regards to Adam's background on the police department, et cetera, However, he did give the cops a good raise. They did get a decent raise. And he also, I think, put people in place in the police department that do back the cops. It's like a gray area situation. They're always backing the cops. Madry, Shell,
100%.
They all come out and back the cops. That's for sure. So if Jomani Williams did get in, for a short time probably, hopefully they, keep everybody in place to, like you said, Pat, to run the police department the right way, which I think to a certain degree it's being run the right way as we speak.
I believe so also.
It's something that Pat brought up a good point about cleaning up the city. The city was horrendous by the end of the Dinkins term. Everything that's good in this city that's happened since 1994 came because the city became safe again. People didn't have that fear when you're going to walk out, you're going to get mugged, car windows are going to be smashed. That fear dissipated. Now, and the city within a relatively short time became extremely safe. And you look what happened with the amount of construction, building, new business.
Because it's the key.
And people wanted to live here. And you jump ahead now, of course, that's 30 years ago. look at the demographics of age in New York City. Who's here now? A lot of young people are in their 20s and 30s. They have no clue how bad this got. And I think the key thing that people, especially going back a little further, as bad as things were in the 80s, it got worse, and it got worse fast. So people don't realize if you were walking down the street in the 90s with your $1,000 iPhone or your whatever electronic gadget you had, you were a victim. You were going to get robbed. Exactly. It's especially in Midtown North, Midtown South. You were getting rolled, no ifs, ands, or buts. And so people that don't have that historical knowledge need to realize that and it all emanates from public safety, all of it.
And I would hope, I don't know if you've seen Gotham, the rise and fall of New York City. Really, it brought back horrific memories of how bad this city was in the 80s and early 90s. It was horrific. There was graffiti everywhere. It
was filthy.
And that's symbolic of how in disarray that the city was.
And, you know, I'm like you. I'm multi-generational here in the city. My family's still here. You know, my family still has a home in Queens. And it kills me.
Yeah, no,
to see
it's
this
depressing
decline, and you have to worry about your loved ones if they're out. Nobody wants to, but aggressive politicians, every policy they institute, it's taking us right back there.
But
it's
this is a national trend. It's not just in New York City. It's a national trend.
But we set the trend. When Giuliani, when we dropped crime, when the police department dropped crime, but only because we were the model precinct, people came from all over the country to see how we did it here in New York. There was people came from China. People came from all over the world, I should say, to see how we did it. And we are the NYPD. We lead and others follow. And the opposite effect, too, with the no cash bail and the diaphragm law and all the restrictions that they put on our cops today. Just it took off throughout the country, too, in a negative way. So I'm praying that people wake up. People need to know. You need to know your past, or else you're doomed to repeat it. You need to know about that.
You also need to know the
kids,
players. Because people will go down party lines. Oh, he's Democrat.
No,
right,
which makes me sick. And you got to be able to think on your feet. You got to be saying who's best for this country right now, who's best for this city right now, and that's the way you got to vote.
They go in the booth. Oh, I'm going to go blue. You might have two Democrats out of 10, and the other 8 are progressive raving lunatics.
Well, look what's going on in California. You can commit a crime under, I think it's up to $900, and you don't get prosecuted. That's insanity. So that's why I say this is a national problem. And, you know, California is called the left coast.
But imagine if you brought up your children like that. If your children just continued to do bad things and there was no consequences for bad behavior, you're going to raise a delinquent. All right, so it's that simplistic. I think there needs to be consequences for bad behavior, and that's why I thought it was so important to bring up the boxing program, that you got to get to these kids before the streets get to them and give them a smack in the head and say, schmuck, you got to stay off the streets. The streets are nowhere. Streets are a ticket to jail, to Rikers Island.
When I was growing up, we had the PAL, which is still around.
Yeah.
But it was popular in my neighborhood back in the day. You know, I grew up in the city as well. I didn't move out till I got married. My wife didn't want to live in the city, so we went north. Otherwise, we'd still be here because it's a great city. And we also have a great police department here, NYPD. So on that, Pete, who would you say would be a good choice, besides Jumaane Williams, of course, to be the next mayor?
This National Foster Care Month, Marine Toys for Tots is providing hope to children who need it most. Staff Sergeant James Caldwell, who grew up in foster care himself, shares that while handing out gifts at a Toys for Tots distribution event, a little girl looked up at him, reached into her bag, pulled out a stuffed animal and said, "Someone needs to make sure you get a toy too." That simple gesture embodies the heart of Marine Toys for Tots, ensuring every child, including those in foster care, experiences the kindness that can transform their future. Visit toysfortots.org today.
Curtis Lewa.
Hey, I agree.
I like that.
One thing I noticed about Curtis, I listened to him. He truly loves New York City. I mean, hands down, one of our biggest fans of New York City is Curtis Lewa. He loves the people here. He's a man of the people. And I think the ego is not there in the sense that he knows how to pick the right people to run different agencies. If you know what you don't know, then you get the right people in to help you, and things move ahead. I think Cuomo is definitely throwing his hat in the ring. If you look at the Democratic side of the ledger, he's the best of the worst. Not a fan, but he. I think if he steps in, at least on that side, he's going to come to the forefront of that pack.
Yeah.
And people are willing to forgive a lot of his past transgressions.
Oh, yeah,
We have
forget.
Cuomo-sexuals. I never thought I'd hear the word Cuomo-sexual. People were in love with him. But this guy's got a track record over the years. I'm like, this guy's like Dracula. Until you drive the stake through Dracula's heart, rip open the casket, pound one in there, and expose him to sunlight, this guy's going to rise from the dead every time. You have to look at his DNA, where he came from. Yeah. His old man, Mario Cuomo. These guys are hardball, heavy-duty, old-school politicians. They know how to play the game.
You made a very good point before when you said that Curtis would pick people who know what they're doing and let them run with it. With Adams, it's just the opposite. He never vetted any of these people, as far as I know, and he picked people on the basis of cronyism, loyalty, and whatever, which is a mistake, because you have to pick good people and delegate to them, and then you step in when things aren't going right, and that's a big problem. This is a reason why what's going on today is going on, because of the selections he made. Can you imagine 3 police commissioners in 3 years? You take Ray Kelly, was a commissioner for 12 years, longest serving in the city.
Take Ray Kelly. Take a look at some of the other people. Keechant Sewell was a good police commissioner.
Very good.
Smart, knew her business, knew how to manage people. And I think after a year or so, she was like, this is not working. Which we never had a deputy mayor for public safety before.
No, we did. We did under Dinkins. He appointed Judge Marlin.
Okay. But who do we have this time around? Unindicted co-conspirator Phil Banks.
Well, again, a question of loyalty and cronyism. I mean, the worst guy to pick, and he recreated that job just to give Banks that job.
But when I think Adams had a chance to be a legitimate good leader right in the beginning, he went up to Albany a couple of times, and our state legislature is pretty much dominated by progressives now. Andrea Stewart Cousins and Carl Heastie. He went up there and got into it with them, and they smacked them around back to Manhattan. He went up there a couple of times to say, hey, listen, you're killing us here with the legislation, with the criminal justice reform, bail reform, discovery reform. This has to be rolled back. And could he have made a stronger stand? Yeah. If I was him, I'd use the bully pulpit of City Hall every day and just dump on Heastie, Hochul, and Andrea Stewart Cousins. Say, hey, you got to change this. He backed down. And then he was kind of like a favored son down in D.C. for a while.
Oh, wow.
And I give him credit. He was 100% right. When he went down there and complained about the different migrant issues and the cost, he was right. I give him credit for that.
Yeah. And,
man, that lit the fuse on his downfall. Yeah. Now you're going to pay.
Yeah. Pat, what's your thoughts on the mayor's race?
Well, I'm not ducking the question, but I think I want to see how things play out. I want to see how things play out, like we were just talking about before we started filming. I want to see I want to see a unified Republican Party, and I want to see the right person at the top of that ticket. I love Curtis. I think Curtis would be an incredible mayor. But only because of exactly what you said. He loves this city, and I don't know. I love this city, but I don't think I could compare with a guy like Curtis Lee would, just because he's crazy. He's out there in the streets day and night, and what he does for nothing, which is incredible. I think he would be an incredible leader, and I think he would run on meritocracy. He wouldn't appoint people that check boxes. You got to appoint the best person for the job, and I believe he would do that. But I think we have to see, because you got to be realistic, can a Republican win in this city? And I think we have to see how things are going to play out on the Democratic side, because we could end up with the Blasio times 10, and which then we're going to have no other choice. Which then we're going to populate Florida even more.
Well, Curtis doesn't sleep, so
no, I know. God bless him. I wish I knew that secret.
Yeah, but the people that would be working for that, they'd have to be up all night. They'll be calling at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Hands on for sure. What about? Now let's switching gears a little bit, but come back to what Pete was saying about Adams and Washington, D.C. Crime, illegal alien crime is out of control. Not only in New York, nationwide. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I live in Midtown, not far from the Roosevelt Hotel, which is like the epicenter of placement. And in the beginning, it was sold to the citizens as, oh, yeah, we're going to put this here. It'll be for migrant families. There's no migrant families up there. The place is a horror show. And I was talking to Captain Mammoth before, Keith Powers, city councilman, my district. He lobbied to get that thing open. That hotel had been closed for several years. It's owned by the Pakistani Airlines, which is ostensibly owned by the Pakistani government. They got a $225 million emergency contract for 3 years for that facility, which, for a vacant building, that's a score. And Powers and a couple of others on the city council lobbied for it. And he lives on the east side. I'm not going to say where he lives. I don't want to, but he lives in a nice community where it's safe. And he doesn't come up to our end of the district. But him and a whole bunch of other council people also took a huge political donation from one of the largest hotel lobby groups in New York City. And I'm living next to this volcano of insanity a couple of blocks away. Is that fair to me? Is that fair to the surrounding businesses are all shut down. You can't even have a commercial establishment over there. So now I believe it's up somewhere around $10-12 billion a year that the city's got to spend on these services. It's insane.
Crazy.
It's unsustainable. Yeah. But brought up before is that I think Adams, he made, it was the cardinal sin of going against the administration in D.C. Is he involved in chicanery? I think he is. But I also think it's political. We're going to send a message to you, and we're going to send a message to anybody else in New York City that gets out of line. Nobody wanted that, especially with Biden and Kamala Harris. Nobody wanted that highlighted, like what a calamity the illegals coming across the border was. So you jump ahead now. They're looking, I'm sure, for a mayor that will toe the line on this subject. I look at it a little bit differently. Look at the nonprofits. Nonprofits are getting billions of dollars of emergency contracts, no bid contracts. Look at who's running these nonprofits. They're all associates or connected to people in the progressive wing in New York City. Not so much the Democratic wing, but in the progressive camp. Brad Lander is the city controller. 3 months into his administration, his wife's nonprofit got a $500 million contract. His wife. In normal times.
How is that not a conflict of interest?
And he's the controller.
Yeah.
He's the controller.
He's oversight.
Oversight, right.
So in normal times, people would have went absolutely insane over that. Yet, here we are. No questions are asked. De Blasio's wife, she lost $850 million out of Thrive NYC. Where'd the money go?
Let's get back to the problem that the police, the courts, and the DAs face with these illegal aliens, particularly the police. It's a problem nationwide. The thing is, how do you cope with it? Here in New York, it's ridiculous. They get arrested and they walk out because of the no bail problem.
Right, and the recidivism, and it's impossible, because a lot of the guys on the team, the boxing team, they're good cops. They're out there proactive, doing a lot of proactive policing, and they're arresting the same people, and they're putting themselves on the line. They're going out and they're getting guns, and they're getting bad guys off the street. And what I've noticed, just talking to them, they don't seem to be going to court a lot. No. And I know whenever I locked up a guy with a gun, I knew I had a prep, and I had a lot of court appearances. So I think that priority of putting people in jail to solve that problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a big problem. If you keep locking up the same people over and over again, that's the definition of insanity, to keep doing the same thing over and over again, and the same people. And I'll agree with it. With the theory is that 5% of the people just are most of the criminals in the city. And if you target those recidivists, and that's how we did it with the targeted problem-solving policing. We targeted the people that were destroying our community. Mine was Sunset Park. We went after them, the Latin Kings, the Papachulos. We went after them, and we made sure we gave the district attorneys good prosecutable cases to shut the spots down and to put the people and to advertise, to publicize that we did them, and they faced substantial jail time, just so it would send a message to the younger kids and stuff. I don't want to be a Latin King. I don't want to be a Blood or a Crip. Just common sense stuff. But if the kids see that same kid dealing drugs and carrying a gun back out in the street the next day, I'd rather make that kind of money fast and live that kind of life, and because they're the heroes on the street. And we got to change that right now. And that's why I'm kind of upset, because I think Mayor Adams could have been an incredible mayor. Right, but because he was African and American, because he was a cop, I think, and the playbook was there. The playbook is there. You didn't have to say what playbook you were using, but you seen how we took back this city, and it was all revolved around common sense policing, mostly common sense. Yeah. Problem-solving policing.
Well, let's remember, he invited these illegals in because he badmouthed the governor of, was it Texas?
Texas.
And he accused him of being a racist, which is typical of Adams. When I was in the job, everybody was a racist. He plays that card all the time. So he invites them in. If you remember, if you watch TV, when the buses came in, they were getting little bags, gift bags. Each person was getting a handshake.
That was insanity.
Yeah, so he's at fault for this. Right. And now,
and then he got a big wake-up call when he said, where am I getting this money? I don't know if he thought Biden was going to just send him hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
And, I heard the governor of Texas the other day on the radio, and he said, had he not been accused of being a racist, he would have sent these people to other cities. But he figured if Adams is going to behave like this, he said send him to New York. So I have no sympathy or mercy for Adams for what's going on, because he caused the whole problem. I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm very strong about that.
Well, it goes back to sanctuary city status.
Well, that's nationwide.
I know, but that was an issue when I started in the police department. I don't know if you guys remember, they had a book at Central Booking at that time, and it was an executive order in place by Koch at the time. You couldn't report people.
Yes, I remember.
So what you did was it was a handwritten, it was on one of them old skinny logs, not the thick ones, and you'd open it up, and all right, I have this guy, Julio Gonzalez from Mexico, whatever, here illegally. You make an entry in this log. Yeah. Did anybody ever look at it? No, it was never looked at
It
again.
stayed there.
It's that
On the
log.
desk, yeah.
That
It's
log
still
is
there.
probably still sitting on the desk in Central
So
Booking.
I remember that log. Yeah.
Well, I remember clearly when Koch, it started with Koch, where he said the police will no longer be involved with immigration and naturalization. It was an executive order. Now it's the law. There is actually a New York City law that says you can't do it. So that makes it very difficult because with an executive order, a succeeding mayor can just revoke that. But they can't revoke a law that's in existence now. It would have to be repealed. And that's a big thing to do with this city council. I doubt if they're going to repeal. So we're stuck with these people. We have these Venezuelans, which we didn't have before. They have their own gangs. And Venezuela's not going to take them back, even if they could be deported. Where are they going to go? What are you going to do with them?
No, but we saw that incident a couple of months ago where the gang of Venezuelans attacked 2 police officers in uniform.
That kid running shot him?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the one in particular where
First
I think it was on 42nd Street. It was a lieutenant and a cop. And these guys got into a battle royale. Now, our times were a little bit different. That fight probably would have ended a lot sooner because we didn't have any of these nonsense diaphragm and I take issue with collapsible batons. I'm not a collapsible baton guy. I like a nice big old hunk of wood. The mere appearance of it, and a lot of these guys are going to say, that cop is going to crack me right in the skull with that thing. And they walk away. But if they raise their hands, that probably would have resulted in a trip. Everybody's going to the ER. You want to fight uniformed cops like that in the street.
Bloody turbans.
Bronx party hat, urban turban, call it what you like, but you know what? There was going to be Armageddon, let's put it that way. And they would know that was not a good idea to fight with the cops like that. But here we are. You got Alvin Bragg, lets them all go. Bragg is about restorative justice. Myself, I'm about demonstrative justice, okay? Going to give you a demonstration of what the justice system is about. When you're arrested, you go to jail where you belong. You get prosecuted. He's about decarceration. I'm about incarceration, all right? You put them in jail. Crime drops. We know how this works. But we have this guy sitting at 1 Hogan, letting everybody walk out. And the cops would exceptionally... Any incident the cops get involved in now could turn into like a Supreme Court case, and especially with the lawsuits, the civilian complaints.
Civilian Complaint Review Board is kind of out of control right now.
And I believe in a lot of arrests in Manhattan anyway, I was informed that there's a unit down there that just looks at police officers' cameras. So if you make a collar, you go down there, they're not looking at the film to see what else they can maybe charge him with or get a stronger case by viewing the video, right? They want to see if the cop did everything right.
Right.
So they're quick to
and they're looking to see if the cop perjures himself too.
Exactly.
And which the unions the cops got to look. There's got to be somebody down there with the cop, and they got to be able to look at that video before they're being questioned. Right.
I agree.
Right. That's discovery.
Yeah. It's called the Police Accountability Unit.
Okay.
In the District Attorney's Office.
Yeah. Well, that's.
So
shouldn't have it.
They shouldn't have it as right.
And the restrictions they put.
They call it. Get rid of it.
The restrictions they put on these cops today. And remember when we were on the job, they used to call it white socks. Right. They used to get a case on you in order to fill it out that they successfully completed. They hit you with. There was no corruption, but the guy wore white socks one day. And I'm telling you what they're doing today. If a guy don't put his camera on time, boom. We got substantiated CCRB. Yeah. If the guy doesn't here's the insanity. The guy, they have business cards, right? You know that? The cops have business cards. Right. They lock up somebody or they engage somebody in the street, they have to give that business card. If they don't give that business card, substantiated CCRB. And what happens when these cops are going to get promoted? And they got a lot of these bullshit CCRBs. They're on a monitoring program.
True, Pete.
And
if you're active
guys are going to get rack them up.
And you can't do that. And I'm not a conspiracy nut, but I think that it's purposely done because they don't want that policing. But that policing in a city of over 8 million people needs to be done. Yeah. There needs to be proactive policing.
You brought up the number before. You said like 5%. They're causing all the problems.
Yeah.
the DA is more concerned about protecting that 5% than they are about protecting the 95%.
People have to wake the hell up.
Oh, yeah, they do.
And they have to get out and they vote. Because which neighborhoods are negatively affected the most? The poorest communities in this city are being destroyed, and they go out and they vote for the same people over and over again. Yeah. And it goes back to you need a unified party that has the people in mind, right, not politics in mind and not power in mind. And I just want to throw it out there. I know matching funds. Matching funds is insanity, is ripe for corruption. Ed, you could probably explain it better than I. Yeah, matching funds.
Well, matching funds is for every dollar a person raises, they get
the city, the taxpayer, us.
Well, the it's $8 to $1. So,
right.
So, for example, if let's say take Curtis Leela, if he raises $1,000, then he gets 8 times that. So he gets $8,000
from the city, from the taxpayer.
Correct.
Right.
And many of the people that couldn't run at all run just because they can get the funds. And that's the problem with the party affiliation. You get a candidate who has a lot of money behind them, they can campaign, and maybe a very good candidate can't do it because they're working on public funds. Right. And you have to get a certain amount of money raised in public funds. You have to get a certain amount of money raised to get the public funds. So it's
right, but I think it's just ripe for corruption. It is. It's with the straw donors. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And it needs to be overhauled. And I wish somebody would come in and say we're doing things the wrong way. Money you can't buy elections. It's got to be the best person.
I don't know. Ask Bloomberg.
Right. I thought that was wrong.
That's
also.
a singular case, though. That's just that's a one-off. There's not many people floating around with that kind of money.
Another big issue, not only NYPD, but national too, is the fact of police departments can't hire anybody. I know.
Right, because they demonized it, and it was purposely done. They demonized our profession, and it's and who's paying the poorest people in the country that they pretend to care the most about. They're being affected the most. Because I'll tell you right now, Tottenville, I don't got to worry about them shooting up the street. But when I go to Flatbush, I do. I got to worry about shoplifting every day in my store. I got to worry about abandoned cars in front of my store every day, taking up my parking spots. And we need the right people need to run for elected officials, and I'm going to say it, that what they're doing right now to Donald Trump, I think they want to send a message to every competent business person. Don't even think about it. Yeah. We'll destroy you. We'll destroy your family. Mm-hmm. Don't even think about it, because it's about power. It's about electing the right people that have the best interests of the people in mind. And
I'm still waiting for Kamala Harris, to answer the first question of that debate. She didn't answer. I'm still waiting. She said, "Well, when I grew up, okay, but answer the question. You're
going to be waiting a long time
today,
but look how money has just catapulted her. Yeah. Because when she ran as in the Democratic Party, she dropped out first.
Yeah. First
right?
Week.
Yeah. But the media and corporate America, whoever it is that put the money behind her, they changed her whole persona, right? And it's fake. Yeah. It's fake. Yeah. And I just hope the good people of this city, of this country,
we're seeing the results
wake the hell up.
Of
I know, but
it's fine efforts as the borders are.
It's like stupidity. You forget your past, and if you forget your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
When she gets in the White House, whatever.
Getting back to what I hate to use this term, circling back to the national problem. The feds got very involved nationwide in investigating, police corruption and police problems. What do you think of that, about the feds getting involved, especially now in New York City?
I think, and this has been an issue for a while, a lot of cities are getting hit with consent decrees on how police departments are managed, training issues. And I go back when I think about it, the Clintons were pushing back in the early 90s like a nationalized police force. And that sounds like, oh, that would be a wonderful idea. Everything. It's not a wonderful idea, all right? But it was something that they wanted to move forward. Because then you have 800,000 or 900,000 cops, local cops, under federal control. But they seems to be that they'll move into cities. It's always hanging over different cities' heads. And a lot of times, I think it's just another arm-twisting mechanism by the feds. And they'll use particular incidents and, a force case. And then they'll go back to training. And, your training is this and that. We're going to have federal monitors. They like pushing that whole federal monitor thing. I am not a fan. I'm not a fan at all. Each city is unique. Each city is individual. Each state, there's tremendous differences. But that will not stop the feds from poking their nose in. And I don't agree with it.
One last question. What do you think about the new commissioner for NYPD now? Tom.
Who is it? Which one?
Yeah.
Is it Donald?
Donlin.
The jury's out. What do we know?
We don't
about
know
him?
anything about him.
I never heard of him.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. It's like becoming the captain of the Titanic after the iceberg has already been crashed into.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, you're an interim.
Yeah.
You're not a permanent, so the changes you can affect might be minimal. I understand he's brought some good people in around him to help him out to navigate the department. I wish you luck, bro.
Yeah, actually, for all our sake, I pray that he's good, but I can't give an opinion on him because I really don't know him at all. And I guess the internal whatever moves he's making, he's been quite quiet about it.
Yeah,
but I'm going to give him a little advice. The template is there on how to make this the safest city in America, in the world, and just follow that playbook. Let the cops be cops. Let it be done in an organized, professional way, and let's go after the bad guys and be there for the community. Be problem solving. Go back to problem solving, precision policing. Let's target the spots that are destroyed, like the spot on, and what was it, Roosevelt Avenue, the prostitution spot. It shouldn't have to get to that level. We need to get to it before it gets out of control like that. But you know what? I don't know who had the gumption to let's do it. They did it, and then thank God for that community that they don't got to live like that anymore.
Right. Well, gentlemen, unfortunately, we're out of time. This was a great roundtable. Captain?
It was a great roundtable. We're very happy that you gentlemen came here.
Thank you.
And I hope the listening audience and the viewing audience on YouTube appreciates the policies that you fellows are talking about and your service to the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Sergeant Pat Russo, thank you very much. Sergeant Pete Panuccio, thank you very much for being here. And hopefully we can do this again soon. Folks, if you like what you hear, please subscribe to Cop Talk. And you could also follow us on X, which is formerly of Twitter. Used to be Twitter, now it's X. WABC Cop Talk. That's WABC Cop Talk. Until next time, God bless you, God bless America, and God bless law enforcement throughout the world. Thank you.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.